Welcome to this Future Jobs special event, Building the Future, as we highlight careers in construction and the skilled trades. Thanks to the many organizations who have sponsored WQED's Future Jobs initiative and to the Builders Guild of Western Pennsylvania, the presenting sponsor of this event. During the next hour, please join our host Lynne Hayes-Freeland and our guest panelists for a live discussion. And we want to hear from you. Please post your questions and comments using the chat box on the screen. You'll find downloadable resources and for students and teachers, a questionnaire at wqed.org/futurejobs. But first, a quick look at some of the many opportunities in building the future.
My name's Andrew Brozowitz. I'm 23 years old. I'm from Union City, Pennsylvania. I drive 2 hours a day to get here.
All right, so we're going to talk about blueprints.
I'm here to learn more about my trade and better myself in my career. I like working with my hands. That's why I chose to join the trades and make a good living and have fun at work. As a carpenter here, we start out making 18 bucks an hour and the sky's the limit from there. The reason I like being a carpenter is because I can show up on a job, I can, pour the concrete, build this stairs, and I can drive by it the next day and say, hey, I did that, tell people I built that.
My name's Andy Sibanak. I'm a union electrician for the IBEW. I've always been a hands-on type of worker. I went to a 4-year college, got my degree. I worked as a logistics broker doing computer work every day. It just wasn't for me, so I got into the Local 5 apprenticeship program. There's power from when you turn your light on at home to anywhere you go. Everything needs maintained, everything's updating, so it's a very busy time. I think in the future it's just going to keep growing and growing.
When we talk about iron workers in the future, they're always going to be needed. The work climate in Pittsburgh is really good right now. The truth is most iron workers do the job because of what they're building. We have apprentices from 18 to 61 with all very diverse backgrounds, males, females. The opportunity is here for anyone that wants to get into our trade. I drive into downtown Pittsburgh. I could see a lot of structures that I worked on personally. It's a pretty proud feeling to say that you're a part of that.
This country relies on metal for a little bit of everything. The workforce in welding is aging. We need a younger generation to fill those spots. In the Pittsburgh region, I would say it's booming. There's industry everywhere. I talk to employers all the time and they're beating our door down for welders. Welding is worldwide, and if you want to travel and go overseas and weld, it's perfectly possible. Go where you want and do what you want and build what you want.
Competitive wages, opportunities for advancement, job security, and fulfilling work. Those are just some of the attributes used to describe a career in the building trades. Now, notice I said a career and not a job. Hello and welcome. I'm Lynne Hayes-Freeland, and for the next hour, we're going to be talking about opportunities in the construction industry. Joining me for WQED's Future Jobs, Building the Future, is our panel of guests representing the industry, from union leaders to construction industry professionals. So let's begin. Jeff Nobers. Jeff is Executive Director of the Builders Guild. His organization provides a forum for labor and management to work together and to create a career opportunity haven for those looking to work in the demanding and challenging construction industry. John Mascaro is the President and CEO of Mascaro Construction. Dexter Hendricks is Vice President of Community and Citizenship for Turner Construction. Saul Jimenez, Laborers Local 373. Saul is an instructor at the Western Pennsylvania Laborers Training Center. Tony Martin is also an instructor, but at the Carpenters Training Center. Rick Perot is a fourth-generation Local 3 ironworker and assistant trainer for the local. Tim Wyzyaninski is the Assistant Trainer Director for IBEW Local 5. He oversees the Electrical Apprenticeship Program. An impressive panel indeed. But let's get right to it. I want to start with a discussion on a broad note. And I'm going to direct my first question to Mr. Mascaro, Mr. Nobers, and Mr. Hendricks. Now, all three of your organizations have invested a lot of time and money and sweat equity through your mentoring programs, your training programs, as well as outreach. Obviously, you see there is a need to develop a workforce for the future. So break down for me, if you will, what do the job opportunities look like? What does the future hold? And not just for those who might be just entering the workforce, but for those who might be transitioning from another career. Mr. Nobers, we'll start with you.
Well, good morning, Lynn, and everyone on the conference today. We thank you for participating. In terms of jobs, I mean, they've obviously evolved over the years. John has been in the industry for quite some time. I mean, he started out in the field like most folks do, even though he's running one of the larger and well-known regional construction companies now. And I think that's true of most folks. So, there's a lot of opportunity for growth, a lot of pathways. I mean, certainly as technology becomes more prevalent in our everyday life, it becomes more prevalent in every industry as well. And I think what you see with a lot of our training centers, whether it be the carpenters, electricians, the steam fitters, these are very technically savvy places. These aren't cinder block garages where somebody teaches you how to swing a hammer or weld a pipe. There's a lot of technology, and it requires study, and it requires commitment and dedication, really, to get through these apprenticeships, which run from 3 to 5 years. It's really no different than going to college, in many respects. That's why I tell kids, and the difference, though, being you do get paid and you get benefits while you're in our programs, as opposed to paying the college and getting no benefits when you go to college.
Mr. Mascaro, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on the same thing, the broad overview of the industry.
Yeah, no, Jeff said it well. And there's 2 points I'd like to make. One being that the industry itself is somewhat misunderstood, and there is, as Jeff said, there's multiple pathways, multiple ways to get to any really job in our industry. And just on another note, there is the industry itself is undoubtedly the greatest industry in the world, because there's nothing more exciting, nothing more rewarding, nothing more challenging than winning a job and going to build a job with a construction team. And number 3 is, that was 3 points, I'm sorry, the union trades and the development of the professional craftspeople in this region is second to none in the country, as well as the relationship with management and the trade. So we're a harmonious team, and the building trades develop exceptionally talented, committed to quality, committed to safety craftspeople. So we're really fortunate to be in this region, and the industry is like none other. So thank you.
And Mr. Hendricks.
Yes, everybody said it well. I think it's a great time and a great place to be in construction. And a little side note, I graduated from college with a mechanical engineering degree, but I utilized all of my summers to make sure I was, boots on the ground, in the field, working with the carpenters and the laborers. And I passed up some great opportunities to do some design work and engineering work. But I wanted to make sure that as I approached project management, that I knew exactly what the trade workers was feeling, how they think, what they used to make decisions and stuff like that. So, ditto to everything everybody else said. It's a great time to be in construction. And I think we all have a role to play in making sure that the awareness is there, making sure that the training is there, and ultimately making sure that the opportunities are there as well, too. So, 2021 has been off to a little bit of a slow start, but we're doing better than 2020. So,
terrific. I want to get to the rest of our panel, but first, Jeff, I want to circle back to you only because we have a question from the audience. You made the comparison to going to college, but one of our audience participants wants to know, do you get college credits for the apprenticeship program?
Yes, several of the programs, I know among them the electricians and the carpenters, you do get credits through CCAC, and those credits come as part of your training at the through the apprenticeship. You don't go to separate classes or anything. This is just part of the whole package. And that way, when you do finish your apprenticeship, I think in the case of the electricians, and Tim, can correct this if it's wrong, you actually have the 2-year degree when you're done with the apprenticeship. In the case of the carpenters, there is a 4-year apprenticeship. You come out short a few degree credits to have that 2-year associate degree, but you can go and finish it and get reimbursed if you maintain an appropriate grade average. So it's really a situation where you've now learned this great skill. You have a 2-year associate degree, maybe in construction management or estimating. Those credits can be used at Pitt and other schools. So a lot of folks go on and they get an engineering degree or a business degree or an accounting degree. And I think that's the other point. To work in our industry, you don't just need to be a tradesperson. Uh, the construction companies, especially, and even the unions, though, hire accountants, hire human resource professionals. So there's a variety of ways you can work in this industry with multiple different degrees. So, but I think at the end, as John and Dexter both said, to be out there in the field and really understand the industry before you try and come in and do those things certainly gives you a leg up over others.
All right. So Jeff mentions the carpenters training program and the electrical training program. So let's go there. Tony, let me come to you. Talk to me about who's a good candidate for the Carpenters Training Center. Do we have Tony?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
My unmute didn't want to work, but of course, but it's one of those things. If you want to come in, you want to work hard, and the one thing that we look for is somebody that wants to make a lifelong career, somebody that wants to dedicate themselves to our program. We're not just carpenters here at the training center. We're also floor layers, mill cabinet, millwrights, pile drivers. So we have a pretty large umbrella here to work with. We want people that are willing to come in, work hard, show up every day, have a great attitude, and they can come in and they can achieve a great career and also have the opportunities to expand to get those CCAC degrees.
Tim, same question. Are you looking for similar characteristics in individuals and candidates?
We are. And, one of the things that we're pretty frank with the people that come in, even for whenever they get in for an interview or whenever I go to the high schools. It's not for everybody, but it is a very, very rewarding career. I mean, we want people that want to get their hands dirty. We want people that, want to get up early every day and go to work, whether it's cold, whether it's hot. But it's very rewarding. And there are a lot of people out there that that's what they want to do. They don't want to get up in the morning and go to an office and do the same thing every day. And there's a lot of different things that you get your hands on whenever you do this for a living.
So that's a good transition to you, Saul Jimenez from the Laborers Local 373. So if you had to give an overview of what a training program looks like, what does that look like?
For us, for the laborers, the training program involves a lot of hands-on. Pretty much, when you become an apprentice, you're going to be working with a journeyman who's going to guide you and show you what tools you're going to use on the job site, because most of our trainers, they don't know what tools to use. And pretty much a journeyman, it will teach you and how to use different kinds of tools, how to do the work safely. And pretty much it's going to be like a mentor. Okay. Yes, you need to come to our training center and have a class, 300 class hours, and the rest of the hours you're going to do it on the field. It's hands-on training.
Rick Perot, let me ask you this. What are some tips? I know that I think I believe that. I might be wrong about this. That for all of the different trades we're talking, getting into the apprenticeship program, you have to be able to pass a drug test, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. If you think about all these different careers that we're talking about, none of them can afford the extra risk, the additional risk. A lot of the things that we do are dangerous in nature to begin with. Our contractors, job owners, and our union cannot have people on site under the influence of any type of drug or alcohol. So it's part of the trade. You need to bring skills to the table. You need to bring work ethic to the table, but you also need to bring a sober, drug-free life. So when you get out on our jobs, you're not going to be getting hurt or hurting others.
And Mr. Mascaro, I want to circle back to you because at the end of the day, this is kind of like an ideal situation for people like you because you have these needs and you have these trade unions that are basically preparing the workers that you're going to need in the future.
Yeah, no, undoubtedly. And that's one of the reasons I mentioned what I said earlier on the relationship we have here is, it doesn't cost the apprenticeship anything. We're paying into the trades as a fringe benefit. It just makes all the sense in the world. And quite frankly, I'm flabbergasted that this doesn't pick up, and we should be increasing union construction throughout the country. And I just don't understand it. It just makes all the sense in the world to go this route. And, we're just fortunate enough to be in this region, as I ought to say. And we get great people. I mean, we request what we need. We have the ability to get rid of whoever we want. The competency of the individual is based on the contractor who's footing the bill. So it's a good understanding between us and the trades and all the unions. So it works out really well. It's a great model, I believe.
So Jeff, let me come back to you. And this is kind of similar. And I know that it'll be different for each of the trade unions. But one of the questions from our audience is, in addition to being paid during the training, do the health benefits begin immediately? So I don't know if it makes more sense for you, Jeff, or for each different area to respond.
It's going to vary slightly from trade to trade because, they typically have different types of policies or levels of policies. But in general, it's not unlike going to work for any company. You typically have to get in the neighborhood of 400 hours worked before that health care actually kicks in. And I believe it's the same with the pension programs as well for the most part. So, there is that 10-week period roughly, and quite frankly, probably ends up being less than that because most folks that are out in the field working don't work 8 hours a day. They'll end up working 10, maybe 6 days of 10 hours each. Now they're compensated for that, obviously, from an overtime perspective, but that generates those hours for you more quickly. So it's not immediate, but it's certainly not a daunting amount of time to get into those programs.
So next round of questions, Dexter, Saul, Tony, I'm coming for the three of you. The buzzwords in 2021 are diversity and inclusion. What does that realistically look like in these industries? Dexter, I'm going to start with you.
So that's a great question. And, a lot has changed since I first started. I remember in a lot of instances, me as an African-American male, I was the only one in a lot of rooms that I went into. And as I, grew within the company, that became more apparent. But I think now a lot has changed. I was at a project the other day and there was a lactation pod that was being placed on one of the floors there to, trying to make construction, need I say, sexy to everyone there and making sure that we're doing the right thing as far as inclusion, right? So, there's been a national movement to diversify the workforce and, here in Pittsburgh, it's no different. So I just want to make sure that we do our due diligence to ensure that we reach out to everyone and allow them to know that, you know, this is a career, and it's not just a male swinging a hammer, but, you know, females are involved, and, you know, opportunities for African Americans to be in leadership roles, as well as, you know, a whole gamut of careers that are not, you know, traditional as you may seem, but, you know, surveyors, estimators, engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So I like the way that the industry is going. And I like the efforts that everyone on this call have been made to ensure that we continue to diversify and be as inclusive as possible within our industry.
Tony, let me ask you, because I don't know what your reaction was, your thought was, but honestly, a lactation pod is the last thing I expected Dexter to say. Talk to me from a woman's perspective.
I could have used it in my career. It would have been absolutely wonderful. I worked through up to 25 weeks with my first child, and my second one came through, and I just went in to help fill in here and there after my second one right away. But I was only just 6 weeks out. So I said, what do I do? You know, where do I go? Do I go to the truck?
We got you now, Tony.
That's awesome. You know, that's something I absolutely love to hear. That's for sure.
Are there other challenges you faced as a woman, do you believe?
Oh, yes. It has changed a lot. And even now, some of the young women, they're uncomfortable. They're stepping into a place filled with, sometimes we have one female in the whole building, one female apprentice, and we've got over 100. And sometimes we have multiple, we'll have 7 of them or so. And even that, between that ratio is still way off, but we're starting to see a lot more. It's becoming accepted a lot more, and the women are kind of just following right along with everyone else. They're learning, hey, we can do this too.
And last but certainly not least, Saul, I think one of the interesting things is, for years when people looked at the Pittsburgh market and they talked about diversity, they always thought black, white. And that was the extent of our diversity. But in 2021, that's changed as well. Tell me what some of your experiences have been like.
Some of my experience has been Pittsburgh is grow a lot in the last 21 years. Now you will see a lot of the Latinos in Pittsburgh, not only from Mexico, but from Central and South America as well. And you will start seeing a lot of people working in the construction industry. Okay, when I first started, I only met maybe like 2 or 3 other Spanish guys working construction. Now you will see them everywhere. And you can see them doing everything from operators, carpenters, some of the drywalls, painters. You will see them everywhere, not only for the Spanish, but you will see more females too, and more other nationalities too. As long as I've been working with the laborers, I know about 20 different nationalities that we have. We have from Croatia, Russian, South America, Central America, Mexicans, we got Canadians, we got from all over the world. And like I say, Pittsburgh is growing more and more every year. We are welcome a lot of different communities, and we always embrace everybody to join the union. Doesn't matter where you came from.
So Jeff, let me ask you this. We're at a crossroads. We are all just kind of coming out of this pandemic. We are all just getting back to whatever our new normal is going to be. The transportation secretary is in town today. When you look at the next 12, 24 months in this region, how does that look for this industry to you?
Well, from you have to look at it from the standpoint of both the private and the public investment. So obviously, infrastructure is public investment. That money is coming, through the federal government. Certainly, there's a great need for that in this country. I don't think anybody makes any bones about that, between bridges and roads and tunnels and locks and dams and everything else. Our infrastructure lags. We're ranked like 9th in the world of developed countries in infrastructure, which I guess some people don't think that sounds too bad, but when you consider that some of the companies that are countries far ahead of us are not countries you would expect to be. So, there's a definitive issue and problem there that needs to be addressed. The one thing to keep in mind when you hear these numbers, 600 billion, 1 trillion, which are just numbers that most people don't fathom. We're talking about this over the next 15 years. So in that respect, it's good because there's a steadiness to it and there's a consistency to it. On the private investment side, this market was really going through the roof. I had folks, like Dexter work for some of the national contracting companies who would flat out tell you Pittsburgh was, the second or third busiest market in the country in the heyday there, pre-pandemic. We were probably running about 5.5 billion a year in the 12 county region on non-residential construction. That's dropped to maybe about 3.2 or so in the last year, but we're seeing it start to come back now, and we're hopeful of that. Obviously, we saw the other day U.S. Steel made their decision not to proceed with the plant, and that certainly hurts. That was a big project, but we also have the airport project. We have the infrastructure coming, and I think we're going to see a lot of these office and hotel and hospitality facilities now start to ramp back up as we get through this pandemic and the restrictions start to lift. So it's very bright. And I think coming into our industry now, you can build a very good and sustainable career. The other thing you got to remember, we have a lot of people retiring over the next 5 to 7 years as well. Thousands of people a year. So that creates a lot of opportunity on the entry end for people to come into the industry and be long-term in our industry.
So I want to, John and Dexter, I'd like to pose this question to both of you. And Dexter, I'll have you go first. John, you go second. But it's like anywhere you pretty much drive around this area, you'll see a sign. It either says Mascaro or it says Turner. I mean, those are the signs those are the names that everyone knows. So when a huge project is completed, what is your biggest point of satisfaction? Dexter?
Well, I think about all of the sweat equity that went into completing the project, and not necessarily just the labor and stuff. And I know this is a panel on labor, but that's definitely to be commended. But I think about the economic improvement, the workers that were able to put food on the table because they were a part of that, and everything that goes beyond just the project. As Turner, what we did to give back to that community as it relates to providing businesses for opportunities for small businesses, providing opportunities for people, creating a diverse atmosphere on that project. And one important thing to note that, we were just talking about the pandemic, but even through the pandemic, I know us as a company, we did not lay off not one single person. I mean, we were able to continue to do the things that we enjoy doing, which is construction. And, it's really a testament to job security and what we are in this industry that, all through the pandemic, we're able to continue working. So there's a lot of things, there's some joy and satisfaction that comes from seeing a structure that's being built, even though, you worked on it when it was just a drawing on a piece of paper. But I always think of, everybody that was affected outside of the actual bricks and mortar of the actual building.
And John, how about for you?
Yeah, Dexter did a fine job. I have to get creative here on answering that question. When you think about it, we try to motivate and inspire our troops during the construction piece. And when you get to the heart of things, you're building things for, obviously to feed your family and to collect a paycheck. But there's a greater cause. Like we're building a VA hospital. We're going to, so the reward is, veterans who are injured can go there and get treatment. So there's a higher calling just kind of above and beyond. Everything Dexter said is great, is 100% accurate. I'm just trying to be on, there's a home of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are going to play here and they're going to support our and so forth and so on. Everybody loves it. So when you can get excited about the physical sense of accomplishment, because what the heck you're building matters, and it's going to cure sick people, or it's going to be the home to the Steelers, or whatever it may be. That on top of everything Dexter said.
Now, I'm sure for the different respective trades, your investment in a building, a facility, a stadium is very different. And I want to get your takes on that. But before we do, Tim, I'm going to address this to you, but recognizing it could be different across the board. But it's a great question from the audience. What do the COVID-19 precautions look like in training, classrooms, and on job sites?
That is a good question. And we were actually able to conduct our classes. We social distanced everyone. We had enough room in our building to be able to do that. All of our students right now, there's students here today. Everyone has to wear a mask all day. All of our instructors wear their masks all day. We temperature check each student as they're coming in the door, whether it's a day school or a nighttime. So yeah, but we were able we missed about maybe a month worth of school, but we were able to keep everybody here and keep everybody busy. So yeah, it was interesting, but and we actually got through it without any kind of outbreaks here in the school. So we're pretty happy about that.
That's awesome. Rick, I'm going to come to you next because I think the other part of that question from our viewer is we all know that the mitigations are going to change across Pennsylvania, across the Commonwealth come May 31st. But I also know that a lot of the work that you guys are often involved in are outdoors. So talk to me, what do you tell people as they're going through their training and their apprenticeships about dealing with the weather and all of those other, as someone who used to work outdoors, all of those other fun things?
Right. It's part of the trade. One thing about ironworking is when you're 4 or 5 stories in the air, there's nowhere to hide from the cold and the wind. So it's difficult. Ironworking is a physically taxing job, and the weather doesn't help any either. So you have to be willing to get through that. And that's kind of the same for the COVID situation. I know everyone doesn't like wearing masks, but we paint the picture of, for our apprentices that, what they do out on that job as far as the precautions for COVID might affect everyone's employment opportunity on the job if someone happens to get sick. So we have that responsibility regardless of how you feel about the situation. But all of those things rolled up, how difficult the job actually is. You may have to drive far. Local 3's jurisdiction is very large. It's all the way from State College to Ohio. Wow. And from the north to south border. So we cover a large piece of real estate. If you want to work steadily, you might have to travel. You might have to get on the road an hour to an hour and a half. That's not to say you're always going to be on the road and driving that far. I've been 10 minutes from my house. That doesn't happen too often, but all of those things you have to be willing to deal with. It's as part of the career, just as you have to be willing to deal with learning the trade. Those are all things that are part of being an iron worker and just a tradesperson in Western Pennsylvania.
So I want to ask you, I mean, and Dexter and John kind of weighed in on their perspective on what one of the most rewarding parts of the finished product is. For you, Saul, when you finish a job, when a job site is done, what's the most personally rewarding part for you?
For me, I would say it's pride. I was part to build something. Like, for example, I work in the stadiums in Boston, and for me to work with all the different trades in the stadium, and then we started the stadium, and then when we finish, you see how everything calmed down, and then you look back 20 years later and you say, I helped build the stadium. It's proud of anything where you drive in the city of Pittsburgh, whatever, if you build the convention center, the PPG Arena, the PNC Park on Hinesville, just pride. You can say, I built those stadiums.
Tony, I'm going to change this up a little bit for you because we're at this point, at least in our conversation, where we've talked about the amazing benefits of the job. We've talked about the challenges of the job, what the money looks like, where the rewards come from. What is it that you think needs to be done to attract or entice more people to the trade unions, to the trade field?
And that's a hard question. It really is. It's, we need to show them how rewarding that it can be. It's hard to instill that in someone to make them understand how rewarding it could be for themselves. And it does start with these programs in the high schools. I think those have a lot to do with it. Your vocational, your any kind of hands-on that they can get early, and helping your own children, or any of your young people around you. I still have young ladies that I meet at career fairs and that come to the booth with one of their male counterparts because they're interested. And I go, well, what about you? And they say, oh, no. My parents will tell me I can never do that. Well, why? So why can't we just boost these people into it and say, yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great job. It's a great career.
So I guess where we go from here, and maybe I'll bring this back around to Dexter and Jeff, because we're also now coming out of the pandemic, and we have a lot of people who have decided, for whatever reason, the job they were working in, they got laid off, they got furloughed, whatever, and now they're looking to make a career change. How easy is that to do? Jeff, let me start with you.
Well, I think it's going to be more based on your desire and personality, I think, as all of our trade folks have said, and John and Dexter as well. You look at the personality of a person that wants to work in the trades or in the industry. I think you can safely say there's a bit of adventurism to that person. As John said and Rich said, you may travel a long distance for a job. If you want to remain employed, you're going to work on a variety of different types of projects. You'll work for different contractors during the course of the year. So it's almost like you're your own business person, yet you're, within the structure of that union that is, protecting wages and benefits and interfacing with the contractors to ensure employment. So I think if you're the type of person that is willing, to put yourself out there a bit, have that sense of adventurism, not be concerned with going to the same office or the same place every day, and that convenience of that, that's really the personality trait. Certainly you have to be physically capable of doing the work. We've talked about the drug testing issue, but I don't think it's that difficult really for anyone to do it if you just have that desire to really learn the skills and to make the most out of that opportunity.
Dexter, I am curious, and there have been some inferences in one of the questions in the chat. So I come into a trade and I do that for X number of years. And I know from my experience in television, you reach a point where you don't necessarily want to be out in the elements. You don't want to do those things, but you want to stay in the field. You want to stay in the industry. Are there opportunities to transition into managerial kind of roles from one of the trades?
So absolutely. I'm always, and I shouldn't be, but I'm always amazed when I walk around the C-suite as I go to different offices within Turner and speak to persons who have been, officer role or leadership positions and talk about their career. How did they get there? And quite often it has always started with, I was a, union electrician, or I was a union carpenter, or I was a union iron worker. And here you are as, vice president of the company. So I think, there's some great skills that folks learn through the union and apprenticeship trades that carry on throughout great careers in this industry. So, as much as I would like to say, or I used to have that mantra of, go to college and do all that kind of stuff. But quite honestly, college is not for everyone. I think Jeff said it best, that, going through the skilled trades is a great opportunity to have a starting base of a career, which you could stay there as well, but also a springboard into leadership positions, project management, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great opportunity to gain leadership skills, work with your hands, work as a team, and develop that thing that we like to see at Turner, which is that passion for building, that enthusiasm for construction. I think all the other things are necessary as well, ambition, being a team player. But once you have that passion and that enthusiasm, that eagerness to learn, that lean term of continuous improvement that we talk about, all of those things fall into place. So yes, it's definitely a springboard to do many different things. As I mentioned before, I too, took my summers in college to really learn how to swing a hammer and climb steel and do carpentry, because I wanted to be as effective as I could. And if this project management engineering thing didn't work out, I was going to join the trades and go back to being a carpenter. So it's definitely a great career choice. Absolutely.
And John, did I hear something earlier that even though your name is Mascaro, you kind of you spent some time on the other side of this as well?
Well, the other side is actually the front line. If I'm understanding the question, I just if it's in the family, kind of Grandpap 1 was a bricklayer, Grandpap 2 was a concrete contractor. I knew what I wanted to do when I was 5 years old. It was kind of simple. And then at 13, tending a stonemason, a Lebanese stonemason that beat my butt up pretty good, I must say. But it's I think one of the most exciting things is the amount of different pathways to a career. Dexter just answered that question. And you can come through the trades. There's technology positions, supporting project operations that you might not even need a degree for. There's limitless pathways, and the influencers of our young folks. Somebody had mentioned about going to college. That's good for certain folks, but we're taking it upon ourselves to try to educate the influencers of our children and those who are even underemployed, such as veterans and so forth, to get into this industry. You can be a surveyor, you can be a safety manager, you can be a BIM modeler, virtual construction, Primavera scheduling. There's so much stuff to do, and there's so many different ways to get there. It's the flexibility and the versatility of the multiple paths. It's just there, and that's one of the exciting things about this. So we've taken that on some responsibility to make sure we educate the people that are influencing people to choose this career and whatever path it is.
I got a follow up for you, but I want to go back because we have a question from a viewer. And I believe, Rick, you talked about Local 3 covering a wide swath of territory. And one of the audience questions is, what kind of per diems and or financial help or incentives are given for traveling long distances for work?
Yeah, as someone in the trade, as a worker, that's kind of going to be your decision on how far you want to drive. At times there are per diems, but it's not very common within the jurisdiction where there'll be per diems or incentive for traveling, except for possibly a whole lot of overtime, which again, that quickly turns into a lot of money. I will say though, for people in the outlying areas in our jurisdiction, when they come to the training center, we do reimburse for their travel. There's a stipend for when you have to come to the training center. So that's completely different than working.
Okay.
So outside of that, as a worker, when you travel, it's going to basically be your decision to possibly chase some overtime and chase the work.
You make that commitment. Tim, as John was talking earlier, he started naming off a variety of different jobs that were available on a site or in a particular trade. Those are things, if I'm not necessarily connected to this industry, I wouldn't know about. How do people get information? I mean, I'm sure there are a gazillion jobs and titles in each of your respective areas that the average person isn't even familiar with. Is it reaching out to the trade specifically?
Yeah, I guess, it really depends on, I guess we'll go back to the high school level and into some of the VOTECs and things like that. I mean, we use a lot of those programs that are in the high schools as a kind of a feeder for the electricians or for the carpenters or whatever. So it really, it's difficult to try to reach out to some of these folks, because, there is a mentality in the high schools for years that, we've talked about, that everybody has to go to college, and my dad is a retired electrician, and I can tell you that when I was a kid, my dad always told everybody, oh, no, he's going to college. I don't want him to have to get beat up like I did, Well, now he's a really happy guy because, I've gotten into a position now, as an assistant training director here. And, that's one of the pathways that there are. You just really don't know. And I honestly, whenever I sat in that apprenticeship class, I never thought to myself that I was going to be sitting here talking to you as an assistant training director. I figured I would just be an electrician my whole life, but we have people that go into, they become owners of companies. All of our instructors worked in the field. All of our people that are in our offices, the president, the business manager, all those people worked in the field. So it's a lot of different pathways, as everybody else said.
So,
Lynn, I'd like to add to that if I can. Something jumped out at me that Tim had said. He said, when I was sitting in my apprenticeship class, he didn't realize he was going to be where he was. And I don't want it to be lost that all these different paths that everyone is talking about, a good place to start on those paths is right in our apprenticeships. These training programs are designed not only to build good ironworkers, electricians, laborers, and carpenters and fitters, whatever the case may be. We design these programs so that everyone coming into the program is going to be the new leaders of the industry. So our goal is to send everyone that comes into our program on that path to be the next superintendent, project manager, union leader, apprenticeship coordinator. But everything you need to do to move vertically in this business, we try to give to you in these programs.
So I was going to ask you another question, but there's something that they just said that's going to take me in a different direction. But it sounds to me like the apprenticeship program is a win-win. I mean, I don't know what the loss is by going through one of these programs. Is there one? Is there one that I'm missing here, Saul?
No, actually, I will say if you're getting paid what you're getting trained. So I don't think you're gonna lose anything right there because you are making money what you get in the training. So you're not losing anything right there. In some of the other unions, you get college credits. Mm-hmm. So you're not losing anything. Okay, I will invite everybody to join one of the union programs. But you might like it, No. If you like to work with your hands and you like to be outside, this is the path for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think the key though too is, it's certainly not an anti-college bias on our parts.
Right.
What I tell kids when we're out in the schools is, at 18 you may not fully know what you want to do with your whole life. But if you believe you want to work in business as an accountant or as a manager, that path is probably going to take you more into the college path. And regardless of what college costs, if that's what you want to do, that's what you need to do. If your thought is that, I really want to have a lifelong skill, I don't want to sit in an office every day. I think where the big difference comes in is the volume of money that is spent on kids gaining degrees that really have no direct impact on future employment, like, history and philosophy and some of these things. Again, not that education isn't good, but we have a lot of marketing people and people that went into history and social sciences and so forth. And guess what they do today? They're carpenters, they're operating engineers, they're steam fitters, and it's because they found that I went through college, I spent all this money, and I'm making $50,000 a year with no long-term real path here. If I go into the trades, I set my own thing. I sort of whatever I want to do, I can and be what I want to be. So I think that's really where the difference is. And the base question is: it costs you nothing to go through the program. You get paid, you get benefits. I mean, that can be a $500,000 swing over a 4-year period of time.
Just that right there. You get paid.
And Lynn,
you get
if I must
benefits.
add, not only it's a rewarding career, but it's a very influential career as well too. I remember when I graduated from college, hotshot engineer going on the job site. I learned so much from the persons in the field. Share studs look a lot different in person than it does in a textbook, right? So much of my success in the field as an engineer was due in part to a lot of the information that I learned from the trade workers and asking them questions. They were the one that really taught me the ropes and showed me, what it looks like outside of, stuff in the textbook. So very influential.
Tony, I'm curious for you because so many of our panelists have talked about their family histories, what their dad did and what other, John mentioned his dad and his grandfather. Tell me what your path was, Tony.
I started in welding. I was my dad's boy. He had 3 daughters, you got to pick one and go with it. His name was Anthony. That's how I got my name, right? And he was a welding instructor. And I went to the Pittsburgh Public School, and you don't really have the opportunity for VOTEX. And I didn't have as an easy of an opportunity as some of the other schools have. And I remember going to the take your daughter to work day, and you go, I had no interest in the welding at all. And it wasn't until I went to community college. He's like, why don't you take my class? Because I was in jobs that worked with my hands. He said, try it out, see if you like it. And I took his classes. He says, you're really good at it. He's like, do you like it? He said, why don't you just stick with it? And so it kind of just started to steamroll from there. He took me into the open house that we offer every year. And I think we're actually going to have the virtual event this year. Since last year we had to cancel, but just being able to come in, see what the school has to offer and all the different things that they do, you can kind of see it with your own eyes. You can see what they do. The apprentices put on different contests. They put the drywall up, ceilings, what have you. They bring the pile drivers in, the heavy highway carpenters. They have a bridge project. And so there's so much that they do here that you can see just to get a small taste of what might be offered to you. And then you can decide which direction you want to go.
And Jeff, I'm going to bring this back full circle to you. So we hear all these great stories. Many of our panelists have had direct connections, but we've got thousands, tens of thousands of potential folks out here who don't have that direct link. They don't have the dad who says, why don't you come and take my class? How do we reach them? And then the second part of that, because we'll be out of time shortly, what do folks do to get more information about the apprenticeships and take that next step?
Well, Lynn, I think, to the first point, we had always been very active going into the schools, going into community events. We staged our own huge events at the convention center and so forth. And of course, the pandemic wreaked havoc with that, like everything else. And we're looking forward to getting back to those as we move into this fall and next year. Just have to see where that all goes. But in addition to that, we do a fair amount of other marketing, community-based events, referral type programs. But I think that direct contact is most appropriate in trying to do that. As far as getting information and doing some research on their own, at our website, buildersguild.org. You can go to our website, click on apprenticeships, and you'll get a drop-down menu to all 16 of the programs. And within those programs, there's, however you want to term it, sub-programs. So you really have about 30 to 35 different types of training programs and career paths. But there are 16 JATCs that operate here in our region, and they operate by trade. We also list a lot of our contractors. I'm sure you could go to Turner Construction site or to Mascaro's construction site and learn a lot about those companies and others. So, there's a certain amount of, it's a self-starter kind of industry. So, maybe that's where you start, is doing some of that research. And I will say this for the JATCs. Now that we're coming out of COVID and they're able to do this again, the JATCs always were very open to having people come in, giving them a tour, talking to them about that particular craft, whether it was one person coming in or maybe a teacher bringing 4 or 5 people. So that's another avenue. And again, all that information's on our website, or you can certainly Google any of these trades and you're going to get their information in terms of the JATC.
Well, our time is just about up. I just want to thank our amazing panel. Mr. Mascaro, Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Novers, Saul Jimenez, Tony Martin, Rick Perot, Tim Wise. I got it the first go round. Wazyansky.
Wishansky. Wishansky.
Okay, I'm
there
sorry.
You go.
There you go. Thanks
It's so
much.
Simple. It's just like it's written, Lynn.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
exactly. I got that. And it sounds like the best thing to do is really go to buildersguild.org. That gives you an overview. And then, of course, all of the respective corporations as well. Can't thank you guys enough. Your information was awesome. And let's see some careers getting built in 2021. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Lynn.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.